In this series, we profile celebrities who are veterans. Many served in wartime, others did not, but their military service should be noted. Many are household names even today, and have become legendary in the entertainment world. There is no bigger name in entertainment than Clint Eastwood. Whether from old black and white TV shows to feature films, he has been a powerhouse as an actor, director, and producer. Before he was Hollywood's toughest cowboy, before he stared down outlaws and Dirty Harry's most ruthless villains, Clint Eastwood faced a real-life battle for survival, plunging into the freezing Pacific Ocean after a military plane crash, swimming through shark-infested waters for miles just to live another day. His grit and determination weren't just movie magic. They were forged in the real world long before the cameras ever rolled. But how did this young Army recruit transform into one of the most legendary actors and directors of all time? This is the forgotten history of Clint Eastwood, soldier, survivor, and cinematic icon. Clint Eastwood always seemed to fit into each role quite comfortably, as if it were simply a natural thing to do. But he is a far more accomplished and complex character than most people realize. Who is Clint Eastwood? What did he do in the military? How did he become involved in film and TV? What are his accomplishments? What is his legacy? Hello, I'm Colin Heaton, former history professor, Army and Marine Corps veteran, and welcome to this episode of Forgotten History. Clint Eastwood was born May 31, 1930 in San Francisco, California, and had many jobs as a young man, such as delivering newspapers, stacking grocery shelves, and fighting forest fires. He had learned to become an expert swimmer and boxer and was always very athletic. He was drafted into the U.S. Army during the Korean War and sent to Fort Ord, California for basic training, during which time he became a swimming instructor at Fort Ord after graduating from basic training. Eastwood said, "Everybody got shipped to Korea except me. My name just didn't come up, so I figured I'd make the best of it and went up and talked to the captain. I said, 'Look, I'm only a private, but I think I can handle this swimming pool thing.'" He spent his evenings and weekends moonlighting as a bouncer at bars and clubs off base, as well as the enlisted club on base. His looks, height, and stature made him an imposing figure. But Clint Eastwood proved his resilience even further after he survived a plane crash while returning to California after a trip to visit his parents and his girlfriend in Seattle, Washington. Being in uniform, the 21-year-old Eastwood managed to get Space A on board a U.S. Navy AD-1Q Skyraider headed for Mather Air Force Base, Sacramento. He needed to catch that flight, otherwise he would have been late returning to base, which is not a good thing in the military. As Eastwood also said, in those days you could wear your uniform and get a free flight. On the way back, they had one plane, a Douglas AD, sort of a torpedo bomber of the World War II vintage, and I thought I'd hitch on that. During the flight, Eastwood and pilot Lieutenant Francis Coleman Anderson began to experience plane trouble. They ran into bad weather, with rain and a strong headwind. The back loading door flew open, increasing drag and instability, requiring Eastwood to rig it shut with wire, and then the plane's electronics, communication, avionics systems went out. As Eastwood continued, everything went wrong. Radios went out, oxygen ran out, and finally, we ran out of fuel up around Point Reyes, California, and went into the ocean, so we went swimming. Without instrumentation, Lieutenant Anderson had no orientation, and the plane became lost in a fog bank several miles off the coast, and running out of fuel. He had no choice. With the fuel exhausted, and without a radio to call out a mayday, Anderson just ditched the plane into the ocean. The two men exited the aircraft into the frigid waters of the Pacific, inflated two life rafts, and headed for shore. As the sun went down, they saw the plane sink below the surface before using their shoes to paddle toward the distant shore. They got separated and the waves knocked both men off their rafts, and they had to swim about 4 miles to land. But Anderson recovered his raft and made it to shore, but Eastwood did not, and every time he neared the shore, the waves would push him further out, and at one point the undertow nearly dragged him under. He pushed on fighting the exhaustion and hypothermia and eventually reached the shore. Eastwood made his way to an RCA radio station in Point Reyes. He was cold, dripping wet, and exhausted, so the workers there took care of him and warmed him up. The boy was dazed and in a state of shock, a radio operator at the station told the Daily Independent Journal. He could hardly speak. They pieced together his story and drove him to a Coast Guard station where he and Lieutenant Anderson, who had also survived the ordeal, reunited. Eastwood also said, "It was late October, November, very cold water. Found out many years later that it was a white shark breeding ground, but I'm glad I didn't know it at that time, or I'd have just died." During his time in the Army, he met and became friends with future fellow actors David Janssen, well known for his TV show The Fugitive, and his role as the journalist in The Green Berets, Martin Milner, famous for his role in the TV series Item 12, and Richard Long, well established for his TV role in the western The Big Valley. Eastwood was honorably discharged in 1953, and he used the GI Bill to fund his way through LA City College, where he studied drama. As with other actors, he began his career with smaller parts and eventually became one of Hollywood's most sought-after actors. In 1954, he signed a contract with Universal International. He picked up bit parts for a little more than a year before Universal terminated the contract, making his way for playing smaller roles for a few years. He had a small acting debut in an uncredited role in 1955 before being cast in Rawhide in 1958, where he played Rowdy Yates, which ran until 1965. When Rawhide star Eric Fleming declined to star in the Sergio Leone spaghetti western A Fistful of Dollars, that was Eastwood's chance. This started Eastwood's Man with No Name series of films and launched him into movie stardom. A Fistful of Dollars, For a Few Dollars More, Hang 'em High, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly are icons of cinematic history. He made his directorial debut in 1971's Play Misty for Me, but nothing is as more iconic than his series of films where he played San Francisco police inspector Harry Callahan in such productions as Dirty Harry, The Enforcer, Sudden Impact, and The Deadpool, as well as Magnum Force. His diversity in roles as actor, director, and producer ranged from dramas to comedies, such as The Iger Sanction, Heartbreak Ridge, Gran Torino, Play Misty for Me, The Outlaw Josie Wales, The Bridges of Madison County, $1 Million Baby, Mystic River, Unforgiven, In the Line of Fire, and The Mule. To the comedy series where he shared the screen with the orangutan Clyde in the classics Any Which Way But Loose and Any Which Way You Can, but his list of accomplishments is endless. Eastwood's debut as a producer began in 1982 with two films, Firefox and Honky Tonk Man. In 1985, Eastwood starred and directed in Pale Rider, which was the highest-grossing western of the 1980s. Eastwood also composed music to many of his films, either through performing or composition. Eastwood's love of history saw him portray Korean War veteran Walt Kowalski in 2008's Gran Torino, which he also directed. Eastwood then also began adapting books for the big screen. His 2014 film American Sniper, starring Bradley Cooper, is loosely based on the events of Navy SEAL Chris Kyle, detailing his times in Iraq, and which was his memoir, and he split James Bradley's 2000 book, Flags of Our Fathers, into two films. The 2006 movie of the same name focuses on the American perspective of the Battle of Iwo Jima, while the follow-up, Letters from Iwo Jima, tells the story from the perspective of the Japanese. In 2016, Eastwood directed the film Sully, based on the memoir of commercial airline pilot Chesley Sullenberger, who safely landed an airliner in the Hudson River in 2009. Tom Hanks, who played the lead, believed Eastwood was the only man for the job. He almost died. He almost froze in the water, Hanks told The Hollywood Reporter. I mean, no one else but Clint could have or should have made this movie. Eastwood recalled his experience while working on the film, but said it didn't play a part in his decision to direct it. He said, "I definitely did think about it when I was shooting this. I'm probably the only director who's actually been in a water landing, but it had no bearing on me making this movie. I would have shot this movie anyway." Clint Eastwood has dedicated part of his life to helping many veterans organizations, such as the Gary Sinise Foundation. Sinise, a fellow actor, is known for his humanitarian work, particularly when it comes to retired U.S. service members and the disabled service members, and his organization is dedicated to honoring those veterans and their families. He and a few other celebrities even assisted former Green Beret and Vietnam veteran Bo Gritz when he approached Eastwood to help fund a mission to the region of Laos to look for missing in action. Clint Eastwood has earned 5 Academy Awards during his long career, as well as 5 Golden Globes, a Screen Actors Guild Award, and 5 People's Choice Awards. In 1996, Eastwood was a recipient of the AFI Life Achievement Award. In 2006, he received the Stanley Kubrick Britannia Award for Excellence in Film from the BAFTA. He was also awarded the National Medal of Arts in 2010, which is the highest such honor that can be given by the United States government. His career also saw a slight diversion when he ran for the office of mayor and was elected in his community of Carmel by the Sea on April 8, 1986, defeating incumbent Charlotte Townsend in a landslide victory of 2,166 votes to 799 votes. Being an activist, Eastwood ran for mayor to make changes, since Carmel only took up about 1 square mile of land and lacked a single street sign or mailbox, and a 1929 zoning law even banned the sale of ice cream cones. He was tired of the Democrat-run bureaucracy. His nonpartisan campaign focused on overturning similar antiquated ordinances such as these. Eastwood turned his focus toward protecting the environment, as well as building a parking lot, a library annex, public restrooms, and beach walkways. Eastwood had wanted to build on his own property, and he followed through on his campaign promise and approved an application for an ice cream parlor and building that parking lot. Although Eastwood only served a single 2-year stint as mayor, his involvement in politics did not end there. In 2001, Governor of California Gray Davis appointed him to the California State Park and Recreation Commission. Later, fellow actor turned politician Arnold Schwarzenegger reappointed Eastwood for the role again in 2004. Before leaving politics for good, Eastwood delivered a speech at the 2012 Republican National Convention, which was his last major political forum. From a young soldier who defied death in the open sea to a Hollywood icon who redefined the American hero, Clint Eastwood's journey has been nothing short of legendary. His resilience, talent, and fearless pursuit of storytelling have left an undeniable mark on cinema, inspiring generations of filmmakers, actors, and audiences alike. In fact, Clint Eastwood has appeared in, produced, or directed some of the biggest and most impactful movies in the last 60 years. Whether he was out drawing outlaws, enforcing the law as Dirty Harry, or directing films that challenged and redefined history, Eastwood has always embodied the essence of perseverance and excellence. He remains a living testament to what it means to carve out your own legacy, one bulletproof role, one groundbreaking film, and one unforgettable moment at a time. Clint Eastwood isn't just a Hollywood legend, he is an American institution. Clint Eastwood, the living legend, will soon be 95 years of age, and few can compare to him. Thank you for watching this episode of Forgotten History. If you liked what you saw, please click like, share, and subscribe. And if you would like to assist with the ever-increasing cost of production, please consider becoming a channel member and joining our Patreon page. Please check out our merchandise store. And thanks for watching.